Our next presentation will be from Tess Whitty, who is a certified English to Swedish translator, transcreator, and localizer. And she's also an author of a few books that you can find on Amazon about marketing and linguistics. So as I was looking through the description of the presentation from Tess, there were a couple of like a specific phrase that caught my attention, which is human translators. Now, just think of it. 15 years ago or 10 years ago, if you would hear that or see that in the context of some paper, you would think that you are looking at some, I don't know, like some sci-fi novel instead of like the actual description of the presentation. But here we are living in this future and trying to compete with machines and trying to find our place in this new world. So Tess today will be talking about exactly this this trend and how to navigate the role of a linguist in the world where machine translation is becoming, more and more important. So we are having Tess here. Let's see if she has her microphone and video connected.
Hello, Igor. Can
And
you hear me?
yes, we do. Will you see
Good.
her?
Sorry?
Will you see her as well?
Hopefully.
Okay, you'll be sharing your screen. Yeah, we do see that. So please start with your presentation. I'm really excited about that.
Okay, and you can see me and hear me.
Exactly.
Good. Well, thank you, Igor, for having me, and thank you to everyone here. I know I have a lot of familiar faces here that have told me they will be attending, and it was fascinating to hear about micro and micro trends from Renato just before this. So thank you to all the organizers too. It's a great event. And now I'm going to talk about machine translation, because no one can deny that machine translation isn't here to stay and that it's getting better and better every day. So the question is, will we need freelance translators or human translators, Igor, in the future, and for what? That's what the focus of this topic is. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tess Whitty. I am a human translator. I've been a translator for 17 years into Swedish, and I'm specializing in digital marketing, and I have a marketing background, and I am also a marketing trainer for other translators and a podcaster, etc. So why am I giving this presentation? So as a trainer and a translator, I have been curious about machine translation ever since we started hearing about it. It's gone from mockery to feeling like a threat to adapting to it. And I feel obligated to stay up to date on it because I get a lot of questions from other translators about this topic too. And I also think that it's important for everyone here, translation buyers and translation companies, to hear this perspective of us humans, translators. So the presentation is based on my own experience, but also on the general opinions of my colleagues and from articles and research from industry associations and posts. So let's get started. What I wanted to cover in the short time we have together today is the current market situation for us translators and translation companies. I want to talk a little bit about if MT could outperform humans, and when to use machine translation and when to use human translators, and the most important of all, how we translators can remain successful. So let's first take a look at the current situation for translators and language service providers. I am sure you all are aware of these things, but there are some trends I wanted to highlight and point out. So the demand for translation services or translations is at a record high, but inflation-adjusted earnings are declining. And I wrote still here because the pandemic has also changed a lot, but the demand is still there for all of us. So that is all good. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, now this is from 2019 or pre-pandemic, the employment outlook for translators and interpreters has been projected to grow by 29% through 2024. I don't think the pandemic affected this very much, but we will live to learn about it. This is also stated in an ATA article from 2019 called, "Is There a Future in Freelance Translation?" Let's talk about it. But our expenses go up just like in any other industry, but the rates have remained stagnant or decreased. The economists claim that translation is a growth industry. The problem is that the growth is in volume and not necessarily rates. So this means that cheap service is growing faster than quality service. Why is this? Now, this is not the case for everybody, but this is a general trend. So the globalization and the technology like that Renato also talked about, and the growth of demand has also increased the supply. So an increasing number of people have started offering their services as translators. And like all professionals affected by the global competition these days, most translators in high income or high cost of living countries have a hard time competing with the translators offering their services in lower income countries or lower cost of living countries. The trend is also, or the fact is, that we have a very unregulated profession, just like many other creative professions. There's no standard career path stipulating the minimum level of training or experience or credentials required. And as long as the profession remains open to anyone and everyone, competition will remain high and can keep the prices low. But one of the most important factors of all this is that clients are either unaware, not all clients, but many clients, they are unaware that all translations and translators are not created equal, or they are simply unconcerned about the quality of the service they receive. This is usually because they don't understand the importance of a good translation. So these clients will not be willing to pay a premium price for a service they don't consider to be premium. And I am sure that many language service providers are aware and struggling with this too. And lastly, then we have machine translation, which will be the focus of today. So machine translation is what's driving post-editing of machine translation business more and driving the prices down, and more and more language service providers are relying on machine translation today. So the question is, can machine translation outperform humans? So I recently stumbled upon an interesting article or a paper called "Achieving Human Level Translation." And this was an article in a paper published on September 1st last year, 2020, about Cubit, a new transformer-based deep learning system. And the authors were researchers from Google and Google Brain Berlin and many others. And they said, achieving human level translations is so 2018. In 2020, it has become outperforming human level translations. They also say, and that's what I've quoted on the presentation, highly qualified human translators with an infinite amount of time and resources will likely produce better translations than any MT system. But Many clients cannot afford the cost of such translators and instead use services of professional translation agencies where the translators are under certain time pressure. Our results show that the quality of professional agency translations is not unreachable by machine translation, at least in certain aspects, domains, and languages. So this doesn't sound very good. And this is not what I am saying. This is what was said in this article. So the question is, are we going to be replaced by machines? And my short answer is, I don't think so. After following this for over 10 years, my current stance is this. There is a need for both machine translation and professional high-quality human translators. So there is no way human translators could cover all translations that are needed today. So if we need both machine translation and humans, when should we use machines and when should we use humans? This depends on, of course, the complexity and the priority of the translation. So for example, if you're looking to translate a lot of content in a really short time, then machine translation can outpace human translators and bring massive projects into a more realistic timetable. But we don't know about the quality. Also, the simplicity, which comes to the simplicity. When translating repetitive information with clearly defined language terminology, machine translation can handle the repetitive and simple texts. For example, there's no need for me anymore to translate the names of the countries or languages. And then we come to the content priority. Low priority content will be perfect for MT when you only need to understand it. So content that will be used internally might not require the same level of polish of a landing page for a new product, for example. So the focus of this presentation is professional translators and how we can remain successful. So like I said previously, there's no way all the human translators in the world could handle the demand for translations these days. We do need machine translations. But we translators can no longer stick our heads in the sand and pretend that machine translation won't affect us. Instead, we need to have an open and positive attitude and keep an unbiased perspective to see how we can fit in and benefit from it. We need to keep up to date and we need to be interested in the developments. So there is room for both, like I said, machine translation and professional human translators. But if we human translators then will remain successful, we have to focus on this segment here. The high quality translations are those that require the expert touch of a practiced translator with a full command of the context, human intent, and target audience. This also means that if you are focusing on quantity as a translator instead of quality, you cannot really compete with machines anymore. So to compete with machines, here are some suggestions on what we translators should focus on. We have to be more of a specialist than a generalist. A machine has a harder time competing with specialist knowledge. And clients also, our clients, translator clients, language service providers, and end clients are, of course, more likely to look for translators whose skills match perfectly with the job they have in hand, instead of searching for a good all-round translator. And like we saw earlier, in what humans have to focus on, we need to focus on more high priority and critical content. For example, some high at stake legal documentation or medical information will always require the expertise of a specialist human translator. And also, we can focus on impactful published materials, published that you cannot go in and edit, and that has a high impact on the bottom line for a company, for example. These are publications that need to be perfect. These are, for example, annual reports, pharmaceutical research journals, or any published material that can affect a company's image or that are trying to sell. And we also come to transcreation. Transcreation is the art of creative translation. It's a service in itself because it requires deep consideration by a marketing-minded translator. And the goal is to ensure that your message keeps the same impact and meaning across borders, or that it's localized to the target market. It also requires adaptation, perhaps of an entire tone, to ensure that the message and the goals are consistent. It's also not only language related. Audiences react differently within their cultures to certain things, as numbers, structures, images, and even colors. So machine translation will not be able to combine culture, language, and emotion into a creative and compelling text anytime soon. For this, you will need to use human translators. But there's also a growing area of specialization to consider. The developments in the technology and the globalization has meant that there's a huge rise in the demand for digital marketing of translation services. International companies realize these days that machine translation tools are simply not up to the challenge of optimizing a website and the digital content for new markets, and they are looking for native translators with experience in digital marketing. So the machines cannot do keyword research or create compelling meta tags or localize the actual message on the same way on a website. So if we want to compete with machines, we have to also move up in the value chain by focusing on high value areas, which I spoke about. But also another idea is to offer value added consultancy services. So this can be becoming more like a brand or cultural ambassadors. So when companies try to personalize their offerings, they're trying to sell with emotions, offer and adapt to the tastes of the target country. They will increasingly depend on local ambassadors or consultants who can advise them to the cultural specifics of a given target community and help promote products and services in this local language. So translators can therefore also be aware of the new opportunities that can open up due to this, due to their knowledge of a specific language and the related culture. And we can offer services to our clients to help build trust among the local customers and on the ground. And of course, we can't forget about post-editing. It's becoming a subcategory of translation, I think. It is a viable service option for freelance translators. I have been asked to do it several times, but as an old timer, I have taken the stance to not do this, but to focus on the other services instead. And I'm still kept very busy. And post-editing makes sense when the training data of the machine and the quality of the domain and is very well defined. But if it's not, any productivity gain by using machine translation engines is negated by increased professional human editing time if you need to post edit, if it needs to be really good quality. And this is also discussed in the ATA position paper on machine translation called A Clear Approach to a Complex Topic. We human translators should also remember that we can use machine translation to our advantage in certain cases. Professional translators, we can use it as an additional tool or resource to increase translation speed and consistency. We can use it as a reference material or as a source of alternative translation memory, so suggestions. And for example, if I have a long list of countries, I gave the same example earlier, there's no need for me to manually go in and translate all the names of the countries anymore. That is what a machine can help me with, and that's what I could use it for. So that's just an example. I'm not saying that I should use machine translation to produce, I can't use it to produce high quality translation, but I can use it as an additional tool in certain instances. So to summarize all this, we human translators need to up our game. We need to focus on niche markets. We can use machine translation as a way to boost productivity in certain instances, and we can provide value-added services. I recently also read an article from Smartlink that I think summarizes this presentation well, or the topic. Human translators are the ones that will provide that extra level of creativity for the highest quality of work. Machine translation is all about getting the job done with a margin for error. And this is quoted from an article by Matt Grech, the content marketing manager at Smartlink. And here are some references used: the ATA position paper on machine translation, and a Taos article, What Options Do Translators Really Have? And another ATA article, Is There a Future in Freelance Translation? Let's discuss, or let's talk about it. The Smartlink article, The State of Machine Translation, and the paper in Nature Communications, Transforming Machine Translation, a Deep Learning System Reaches New Translation Quality Comparable to Human Professionals. So with that, I want to, here are the references. And with that, I think you can get an access to the presentation with the links. If not, you can email me and I can send you the links. And here is my email and my website. So with that, I want to leave it over for any questions we might have. And I wanted to say, since I'm focusing on Transcreation as one of the solutions where we can up our game, I am giving away the Get Fit for the Future of Transcreation by Nina Settler-Havdar today.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation. I was just going to announce that you will be giving the book, but you did that yourself. We already have a couple of questions. Let me, first of all, first one was not really a question, but a comment about you sharing your presentation. I believe you covered that as well. The best way to share your presentation would be going to our community, where you can answer more questions from the audience. As they will be watching the recordings. And also they will be able to download your presentation there as well. Another question or comment was specifically about the availability of recordings. Those will be available to the people who were signed up for the conference. So if you, of course, it was and it's still going as a 12-hour marathon, and not everyone can see all the presentations live. So we will have all the recordings. So the question from Catherine Bussman is, what kinds of value-added services have you seen freelance translators offer successfully? Can you give some specific examples?
Okay, so I can give an example from, I gave the example of cultural consultations. I have seen translators you offer that as a value-added service. Personally, I am studying right now a lot. I'm partly studying copywriting so I can become a better transcreator. I am also studying international search engine optimization so I can help with that when in digital marketing, when I localize or transcreate or localize a blog post or social media posts. And I have also localized a lot of pay-per-click ads. And then they need, as a value-added service, I need to know or be good at search engine optimization and find the right keywords for the local market. So those are some examples.
So much. There's another question from Martin Charastek. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. What do you think about trainees or new translators? So they are usually the ones who are accepting the jobs for low rates. What will happen to them in this new world where we have to compete with machines?
So first of all, if you are a new translator, I recommend getting as much experience as possible in a good way. So volunteer, translate a little bit every day. You don't necessarily have to lower your fees. If you start out with a low fee, you will have a harder time increasing your rates from the beginning. And if you start out with really low rates just to get the job, you might not be taken as seriously. That said, you do need to get your experience in. So as soon as you get a job, try to get as much feedback as possible. Translate not for clients, but on your own, and have a professional translator review your translations just to get better, and so that you know that you can provide high quality translations. And as soon as possible, try to focus on one area of specialization that you can get really good at. So I don't know if accepting really low rates is the way to go, even for beginning translators. I understand that it's hard to get into the market. I would focus on getting as much training, continuing education, and experience as possible, but not necessarily go for the low rates. But you need to up your game. You need to become good at translation and become an expert in your field in order to be able to compete with the machines. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. I hope it does. The last question actually will be from me. I guess I want that book badly. What do you think about people being shifted towards not providing translation directly, but being like MT training specialists, people who can improve the quality of machine translation over time by producing really quality signal or really quality translation, which hopefully will pay more for them?
So you mean that a translator would shift over to train the machine instead?
Yeah.
I guess that's another job, but then you're not. Yeah, it's sort of the same as the post editing. It's sort of a subcategory. So that if you become a trainer of the machine translation, that's another subcategory. Do you mean, is it a viable profession? Is it a way to go for us, or
is it something that a linguist could shift towards to, like being a really professional linguist, knowing how to provide translations the best way, I don't know, in order to really good signal to improve the quality of machine translation over time, like cherry picking the things that are really needed to up the level of the overall translation, but like exactly knowing where and what to do in order to improve the quality?
Yes. The short answer is yes. I think so. That's another career path. That's another way a professional can become a machine translator trainer. Yes, I guess so. That doesn't mean that there won't be a need for professional translators anyway in the future.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you so much. Again, we got lots more questions that we can answer live. They will be posted in the community, and we will invite you, Tess, there so you can answer them at your own pace and share your presentation as well. Right now, we will be starting a poll that will help you understand how people are thinking about the presentation overall, about the questions, etc. I think it will be starting right now.
And
we'll
will they tag me in the community so I will see it, or?
Yeah, I believe we as organizers of the conference, we will invite you to the right, or like pre-create the right thread for you in our community, so you can.
And do I pick a winner, or do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, we are waiting for the poll to be launched.
Okay.
What would be the best question that you had a chance to answer today so far?
Oh, it's I'm saying the same as Renato. This is really hard to pick, and I think I only answered about 3. So I'm gonna pick the question from the trainee beginner translator, because I think that he could benefit a lot from the book.
Okay.
So
okay.
that was awesome. Who was that from?
Yeah, we'll find that answer, that question from the list of questions, and we'll find the person. All right, thank you so much again. We really enjoyed you being with us today. And with that, we will be starting a poll.
Thank you for having me, Igor.
Thank you.